Picture this. You've been texting someone you really like for weeks, conversations flowing, chemistry undeniable, and finally, you're on your first date. The restaurant is perfect, the food is great, but then, a silence, your mind races. Did you say something wrong? Are they bored? Suddenly, your palms are sweaty, your stomach tightens, and that confident version of yourself vanishes. Sound familiar? Dating is one of the most emotionally charged experiences we go through, where rejection, uncertainty, and overthinking can hijack even the most level-headed person. But what if there was an ancient philosophy designed to help you stay calm, composed, and in control of your emotions, no matter how unpredictable dating gets? That's where Stoicism comes in. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about mastering them. Imagine walking into every date unfazed by the outcome, radiating confidence because you're no longer controlled by fear or desperation. The Stoics knew this secret centuries ago. Emotions don't have to rule us. Instead of spiraling when someone ghosts you or overanalyzing every text, you can train your mind to respond with clarity and resilience. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. In this video, we'll explore 25 powerful Stoic principles to help you navigate dating with emotional control and unshakable confidence. From handling rejection with grace to staying present instead of overthinking, these timeless lessons will transform how you approach relationships. Whether you're struggling with first date nerves or the agony of waiting for a reply, Stoicism gives you the tools to stay grounded. This isn't about playing games or pretending not to care. It's about cultivating real inner strength so you can show up as your best self no matter what happens. Ready to take control of your dating life? Let's begin. Every great athlete visualizes the game before stepping onto the field, anticipating challenges, setbacks, and even failures. Stoics apply the same principle to dating through a practice called negative visualization. It sounds counterintuitive, but deliberately imagining the worst-case scenarios, like being ghosted, rejected, or sitting through an agonizingly awkward silence, can actually free you from the grip of anxiety. Here's why. When you mentally rehearse these possibilities, you're not inviting them to happen. Instead, you're stripping away their power to catch you off guard. Think about the last time a date didn't go as planned. Maybe they cancelled last minute or the conversation fizzled out. If you'd already considered that outcome, the sting would feel duller because you've already processed it. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. It's not about pessimism, it's about inoculation. By exposing yourself to discomfort in your mind first, you build emotional resilience for real life. Let's say you're waiting for a reply after a great date. Instead of refreshing your inbox every 5 minutes, pause and ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? They might not respond, they might not feel the same spark, and then what? You'd survive, you'd move forward. When you confront these fears head-on, they lose their ability to control you. This practice doesn't just soften the blow of rejection, it also heightens your appreciation when things do go well. Imagine walking into a date fully prepared for either outcome, connection, or disappointment. That's the kind of calm confidence that changes everything. The key is to frame these visualizations as exercises, not obsessions. Spend a few minutes mentally walking through potential pitfalls, then let go. The Stoics weren't teaching us to dwell on the negative, they were showing us how to disarm it. When you stop fearing rejection, you start showing up more authentically. And that's when dating becomes less about seeking validation and more about discovering genuine compatibility. One of the most liberating truths Stoicism teaches is the dichotomy of control, the radical idea that some things are within our power while others simply aren't. And when it comes to dating, this distinction is everything. You can't control whether someone finds you attractive, whether they text back, or whether a first date leads to a second. But you can control how much effort you put into showing up as your best self, how you interpret setbacks, and the energy you bring to every interaction. That shift in focus changes the game. Take texting, for example. You might spend 20 minutes crafting the perfect message, something witty, thoughtful, and genuine. That's where your control ends. Once you hit send, the ball is in their court, obsessing over their response time or analyzing why they left you on read. That's energy wasted on the uncontrollable. The Stoics would ask, did you do your part with integrity? If yes, then the outcome is irrelevant to your self-worth. This isn't about indifference, it's about redirecting your attention to what truly matters, the quality of your actions, not the unpredictability of theirs. The same applies to dates themselves. You can choose to be present, ask engaging questions, and listen actively, all within your control, but their level of interest, their past dating traumas or mood that day, completely outside it. When you internalize this, rejection stops feeling personal. Maybe they weren't ready for something serious. Maybe your humor didn't land. That's not a reflection of your value. It's just the natural mismatch of human connection. Here's the paradox: the less you fixate on outcomes, the more attractive you become. Desperation leaks through, whether in overeager texting or people-pleasing on dates. But when you focus on what you can control, your authenticity, your boundaries, your ability to enjoy the moment, you exude a quiet confidence that draws people in. Stoicism isn't about resignation. It's about conserving your energy for the things that actually shape your experience. So next time you feel anxious about a dating scenario, pause and ask, is this within my control? If not, let it go. If it is, act with intention, then let the chips fall where they may. Ever found yourself replaying a dating disappointment on loop, wondering why it didn't work out or how you could have changed the outcome? The Stoics had a radical antidote to this mental spiral: Amor Fati, the love of fate. It's the art of embracing everything that happens, not just the wins, but the rejections, the awkward moments, even the heartbreaks, as if you'd chosen it yourself. At first glance, that might sound masochistic, but what if every setback in dating wasn't a failure, but a stepping stone to something better? Consider the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who ruled during plagues and wars, yet wrote, "The obstacle becomes the way." When his wife died young, he channeled grief into deeper compassion. When rivals plotted against him, he used their malice to refine his patience. Dating, in its own way, mirrors this. That person who ghosted you, they taught you resilience. The date that fizzled out, it sharpened your discernment. Even the crush who wasn't interested, they freed you for a connection that will be. Amor Fati flips the script. Instead of resisting life's curveballs, you learn to catch them with both hands. Here's how this works in practice. Imagine you're excited about someone, but they cancel plans last minute. The default reaction might be frustration or self-doubt, but Amor Fati asks, what if this delay is protecting me? Maybe you'd have missed a red flag in person. Maybe the rescheduled date will land on a day you're more confident. Or perhaps the universe is nudging you toward someone else entirely. This isn't wishful thinking, it's active trust in the process. The Stoics believed fate was like a river. Fighting the current exhausts you, but flowing with it carries you forward. Take the story of Epictetus, born enslaved and crippled by his master's cruelty. Instead of bitterness, he famously said, "Difficulties show men what they are." His suffering forged his philosophy. In dating, your struggles reveal your growth edges. That sting of rejection, it's highlighting where you've tied self-worth to external validation. The jealousy you felt when they mentioned an ex, it's exposing insecurities to heal. Amor Fati transforms pain into curriculum. Every experience, good or bad, becomes a lesson in becoming unshakable. The magic of this practice is its liberating honesty. You don't have to like getting ghosted or pretend a breakup doesn't hurt. You simply recognize that discomfort is the price of growth. Think of a musician practicing scales. Each wrong note corrects their ear. Dating is the same. Every mismatch, every misstep tunes your intuition. When you start seeing life this way, fear of rejection loses its grip. Why dread what might refine you? So next time a date doesn't go as planned, try this reframe. This happened for me, not to me. Maybe it's saving you from a shallow connection. Maybe it's strengthening your boundaries. Amor Fati doesn't promise a pain-free journey. It promises a meaningful one, and that's how you turn dating's unpredictability into your greatest ally. Have you ever noticed how differently you act on a date when you're desperate for it to go well? Your laughter feels forced, your questions sound rehearsed. You're so fixated on whether they like you that you forget to check if you even like them. This is the paradox of attachment. The tighter you cling to a specific outcome, the more it slips through your fingers. The Stoics saw this clearly. Suffering doesn't come from the events themselves, but from our demands about how those events should unfold. Think about the last time you went into a date with zero expectations. Maybe it was a casual meetup or someone you weren't sure about. Chances are you were more relaxed, more yourself. Why? Because your happiness wasn't tied to the result. Contrast that with a date where you'd already imagined your wedding. Every awkward pause feels catastrophic. Every joke that doesn't land like a personal failure. The Stoics would call this propathia, the initial, involuntary reaction we have to events, but then they'd ask, why are you handing the keys to your peace of mind to someone you just met? This isn't about not caring, it's about caring differently. Instead of obsessing over whether they'll text you tomorrow, focus on the quality of the conversation today. Did you listen deeply? Did you share something genuine? Those are the moments that matter, regardless of outcome. The ancient philosopher Seneca put it bluntly, you suffer more in imagination than in reality. The anxiety you feel waiting for a second date confirmation, it's usually worse than the actual rejection. Here's a practical shift. Next time you're on a date, practice process orientation. Enjoy the meal, savor the stories they share. Notice how their eyes light up when they talk about their passions. When you're fully present, two things happen. First, you become more attractive because authenticity is magnetic. Second, you protect yourself from the roller coaster of external validation. Even if the connection doesn't progress, you've already won. You've spent time engaging meaningfully with another human being. That's never wasted, the real magic of detachment. It reveals compatibility faster. When you're not bending yourself to fit someone else's expectations, you quickly see who aligns with your values and who doesn't. A Stoic doesn't chase love, they let it find them by being so grounded in their own worth that only the right connections stick. So tonight, try this. Walk into your date curious, not needy. After all, the person across the table isn't deciding your worth, they're just helping you discover whether your path should cross again. That moment when you receive a text that makes your blood boil, maybe they cancelled last minute with a flimsy excuse, or worse, left you on read for days before replying with a lukewarm "hey." Your fingers hover over the keyboard, ready to fire back something sharp or desperate. But here's where Stoicism offers a superpower, the gap between stimulus and response. It's called the Stoic pause, and it's the difference between emotional chaos and unshakable poise. Imagine you're in a heated exchange. Instead of reflexively typing, you take one intentional breath. In that breath, you ask yourself two Stoic questions. Is this reaction aligned with my values? Will this message improve the situation or just my ego? That tiny pause is where your power lies. The ancient philosopher Epictetus, who endured slavery and exile, put it simply, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Reactivity is surrender. It hands control to the other person, but when you respond deliberately, you reclaim your agency. Let's break this down with real-world scripts. Say someone you've been dating suddenly pulls back. Your anxious mind whispers, they're losing interest, say something to fix it. The reactive version might sound like, are we okay? Did I do something wrong? It's vulnerable, yes, but it's also seeking validation. The Stoic response, I've noticed the energy between us has shifted. I'm happy to give you space if needed, but I'd appreciate clarity so we're on the same page. Notice the difference. One comes from fear, the other from self-respect. Or picture this, they cancel a date last minute with a vague "something came up." Your ego wants to lash out. Wow, must be nice to have such a busy social life. The Stoic pause redirects you. Maybe they're genuinely overwhelmed, maybe they're inconsiderate. Either way, your dignity stays intact with something like, "No worries, let me know when you're free to reschedule." If they flake again, their actions have already given you the answer. No drama required. This practice isn't just about texts, it applies to face-to-face moments too. Imagine a date makes a dismissive comment about your job or hobbies. The knee-jerk reaction might be defensiveness or passive aggression, but the Stoic pause lets you respond with curiosity instead. Interesting perspective. What makes you say that? Suddenly, you're not rattled, you're revealing their character while keeping yours intact. The Stoics called this prosauche mindful attention to your impulses. It's the art of becoming the observer of your emotions rather than their puppet. Every time you resist the urge to react, you're strengthening that mental muscle. Think of it like emotional aikido. You let the energy come at you, then redirect it with intention. The more you practice, the less dating's little shocks throw you off balance. So next time your phone buzzes with a message that triggers you, try this. Put the phone down, walk around the block, write the angry reply in your notes app, then delete it. The right words will come when the storm passes. Mastery isn't about never feeling hurt. It's about choosing not to let hurt dictate your actions. And that's how you turn volatile moments into tests of character, ones you'll always pass. There's a reason the greatest Stoics, from Marcus Aurelius to Seneca, were relentless journalers. They understood something modern science now confirms. Writing about your emotions doesn't just document them, it transforms them. Think back to your last date, the fluttering hope when they smiled at your joke, the sinking disappointment when they didn't text afterward. Those feelings don't just evaporate, they linger in your nervous system, coloring your next interactions. Journaling is how you drain their power. This isn't about scribbling "had a good date" in a notebook. Stoic journaling is dissection. Start with this prompt: what exactly am I feeling and where is it coming from? Let's say you're frustrated because they cancelled last minute. Dig deeper. Is it really about the cancellation or the story you're telling yourself? They don't respect my time. I'm not a priority. The Stoics would call these impressions not facts. Your pen becomes the scalpel separating truth from narrative. Try this 3-part framework post-date. First, record the bare facts without judgment. They arrived 20 minutes late, apologized, and seemed distracted. Next, identify your emotional response. I felt dismissed and anxious. Finally, interrogate it. Was my anxiety proportional, or did I catastrophize? Did I expect punctuality because that's my value, or because I needed them to prove they cared? Marcus Aurelius' journals are filled with this ruthless self-questioning. In one entry, he chastises himself. You're upset because a person smells bad. What if they have a medical condition? That same rigor applies to dating. Here's where it gets transformative. Once you've named the emotion and its root, ask, what would my best self do next? Maybe it's sending a calm text addressing the lateness. Maybe it's recognizing this isn't your person and moving on. Journaling crystallizes the wisest version of you before ego or fear drowns it out. Seneca wrote letters to his friend Lucilius not just to advise him, but to clarify his own thinking. Your journal serves the same purpose. The magic happens when you review entries over time. Patterns emerge. You'll notice how often your distress stems from unmet expectations rather than real wrongdoing. You'll see which triggers are yours to heal versus actual red flags. A client of mine realized through journaling that her post-date anxiety spiked not with bad dates, but with good ones because intimacy scared her more than rejection. That insight changed her entire approach. Practical tip: keep your journal private. This isn't performative self-help, it's raw self-confrontation. Write as if no one will ever read it. Epictetus advised students to journal at night, reviewing the day's events like a stern but fair judge. Your dating life deserves that same honest audit. So tonight, before you dissect their last text, dissect your reaction first. The page won't lie to you, and that's how you stop lying to yourself. Rejection in dating often feels like a verdict, proof you weren't enough. But what if every no was actually a compass? The Stoics saw rejection not as a personal failure, but as life's way of steering you toward what truly aligns with you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The universe is change, our life is what our thoughts make it." In other words, resistance to rejection only magnifies the pain, while acceptance reveals its purpose. Consider how nature works. A river doesn't rage when it hits a rock, it simply flows around it. Dating operates the same way. When someone isn't interested, it's rarely about you, it's about the rock in their path. Maybe they're not ready for commitment, maybe your humor clashed with theirs, or perhaps on a deeper level your values didn't align. The Stoics called this sympatheia, the interconnectedness of all things. A rejection isn't isolation, it's redirection towards someone whose current flows with yours. Here's how to reframe it practically. Imagine you're turned down after a few dates. The ego screams, "What's wrong with me?" But Stoic logic asks, "What's right about this?" Maybe their hesitation saved you from investing in a half-hearted relationship. Maybe their no makes space for a hell yes from someone else. Think of Epictetus, who said, "No person is free who is not master of themselves." When you stop taking rejection personally, you reclaim your freedom to walk away unfazed, to trust timing, to keep your standards high. History backs this up. Thomas Edison didn't view his 1,000 failed experiments as rejections. He called them discoveries of how not to make a light bulb. Dating is no different. Each mismatch teaches you more about what you need, what you tolerate, and where your boundaries lie. The person who ghosts you after 3 great dates. They've gifted you clarity, they weren't your person, and now you're free to find someone who is. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, illness, and war, yet he wrote, "Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny." That's the mindset shift. Rejection isn't blocking your path, it is the path. The more you embrace this, the more you'll notice a curious trend. The less you fear no, the more you attract genuine yes energy. Because when you're not desperate to be chosen, you become selective. And that's when dating transforms from a numbers game to an alignment exercise. So next time you're rejected, pause. Instead of dissecting your flaws, thank the universe for its efficiency. It's not pushing you away from love, it's pulling you toward the right love. As the Stoics knew, the obstacle is the way, and sometimes the detour is the shortcut. There's a dangerous myth in dating, that your happiness depends on someone else choosing you. That without their attention, their affection, their validation, you're somehow incomplete. Stoicism smashes that illusion to pieces. Epictetus, the philosopher born into slavery, put it bluntly, "No one is free who is a slave to their desires." And what is neediness if not a desperate desire for someone else to fill a void only you can close? Think about the last time you felt anxious waiting for a text. That tension wasn't about them, it was about you outsourcing your sense of worth. The Stoics called this externals, placing your stability in things outside your control. When you hinge your joy on whether someone replies or how a date goes, you've handed them the remote control to your emotional state. Self-sufficiency flips the script. It's not about becoming cold or indifferent. It's about building an inner foundation so solid that no one's absence or presence can shake it. Epictetus trained his students to distinguish between what's theirs and what isn't. Your effort to be engaging on a date, yours their reaction, not yours, your willingness to communicate openly, yours their ability to reciprocate, not yours. This is the core of emotional resilience, pouring energy into what you can govern, your actions, your boundaries, your standards, and releasing the rest like leaves down a river. Here's how this plays out in modern dating. Imagine you meet someone incredible. The old, needy version of you might rush to mold yourself into their ideal, laughing a little too hard at their jokes, downplaying your quirks to seem more relatable. The self-sufficient Stoic, they're grounded in a quiet truth. If this connection is meant to be, it will flourish because of who I genuinely am, not who I pretend to be. That shift changes everything. You stop performing and start discerning, because when you're not starving for approval, you can actually taste whether the meal satisfies you. Practical exercise. Next time you catch yourself craving validation, maybe after sending a risky text or sharing a vulnerable story, pause. Ask, am I seeking this person's response to feel okay, or am I expressing myself because it aligns with my truth? The first is neediness, the second is self-possession. Epictetus famously said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." In dating, that means defining your worth before stepping into the arena, so no outcome can redefine it for you. This isn't about isolation. Even the Stoics cherished deep connections. But they knew the difference between wanting someone and needing them. Want is warm, open-handed, I enjoy you, but I'm whole without you. Need is clinging, frantic, complete me or I'll collapse. One attracts, the other repels. Cultivating self-sufficiency isn't a trick to win affection, it's the art of becoming someone who's unfazed whether they do. And paradoxically, that's what makes you magnetic. So tonight, try this. Sit with the discomfort of not reaching out first. Notice the urge to seek reassurance when plans are uncertain. Then remind yourself, I am the source of my own peace. The more you practice, the more dating transforms from a hunt for validation to a joyful exploration of compatibility. And that's when you stop chasing and start choosing. There's a peculiar freedom that comes from staring mortality in the face, especially when it comes to dating. The Stoics called this memento mori, Latin for remember you must die. At first glance, it sounds morbid, but this practice is actually one of the most liberating tools for cutting through dating's trivial anxieties. Imagine you're agonizing over whether to double-text someone who hasn't replied. Now ask yourself, on my deathbed, will I regret not sending that second message? The absurdity of the question reveals the truth. Most of what we stress about in romance won't even register in the long arc of our lives. Marcus Aurelius kept a skull on his desk as a daily reminder of life's fragility. For us, it's simpler. Just zoom out. That awkward first date silence you're replaying in your head. In 5 years, you won't recall their name, the sting of being ghosted. Like a paper cut sharp in the moment, forgotten by morning, memento mori isn't about nihilism, it's about perspective. When you realize time is your most finite resource, you stop wasting it on people who make you question your worth. Here's how to apply this. Before spiraling over a dating setback, run it through the Stoic triple filter. First, is this within my control? Second, does this align with my values? Third, will this matter in a year? Most anxieties fail all three tests. The person who took 3 days to reply, their pace reflects their priorities, not your desirability. The date who monopolized the conversation, they've gifted you clarity. You now know what not to tolerate. History's greatest Stoics used mortality as a motivator. Seneca wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it." Every moment spent fretting over someone's lukewarm interest is a moment stolen from someone who'd set your soul on fire. This mindset fosters radical selectivity. Why chase breadcrumbs when you could be feasting? Why tolerate inconsistency when certainty exists? Practical exercise. Keep a dating memento mori note in your phone. List your non-negotiables, the treatment you deserve, the energy you'll accept. Before swiping, texting, or agreeing to a date, glance at it. Ask, if today were my last, would this be how I'd choose to spend my time and heart? The answer will surprise you. Suddenly, trivial slights roll off your back and real red flags leap into focus. The irony, embracing life's brevity makes you more alive in your relationships. You listen deeper, love more boldly, and walk away faster from what doesn't serve you. Because when you remember time is limited, you stop settling for connections that feel like placeholders. As the Stoics knew, death isn't morbid, it's the ultimate clarifier, and in dating, that clarity is your superpower. Jealousy in dating often masquerades as intuition, that gnawing feeling when they mention an ex, or the pit in your stomach when they like someone else's photo. But here's what the Stoics knew. Jealousy isn't a warning signal about them, it's a floodlight on you. When you resent someone's past relationships or obsess over their interactions, you're not protecting your heart, you're exposing its unhealed cracks. Seneca called envy the itch for what belongs to others, and Stoicism offers a cure. Turn that energy inward and use it as fuel to fortify your own worth. Start by dissecting the emotion like a Stoic would. The next time jealousy flares, say, when your date mentions still being friends with an ex, pause and ask, what am I truly afraid of here? Is it the fear of being compared, the insecurity of not measuring up, the illusion that love is a finite resource? Jealousy thrives in ambiguity, but logic dissolves it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The thing itself is no misfortune at all. To endure it and prevail is great good fortune." In other words, the emotion isn't the problem, it's the catalyst for growth if you let it be. Now the reframe. Instead of fixating on their past or policing their friendships, channel that discomfort into self-reclamation. If their ex's accomplishments make you insecure, list your own victories. If their friendly rapport triggers possessiveness, examine why you equate attention with loyalty. The Stoics practiced such vigilant self-awareness to spot these distortions before they spiraled. Your jealousy isn't a flaw, it's a curriculum. Each twinge points to a belief worth challenging. I must be the best to be loved. If they look elsewhere, I'm disposable. These aren't truths, they're wounds dressed as alarms. Practical exercise: keep a jealousy journal. When the green-eyed monster strikes, write down the trigger, the story you're telling yourself, and a Stoic counterargument. For example, trigger: they joked about an inside memory with their ex. Story: I'll never share that level of closeness. Counterargument: every relationship has its own language. My value isn't tied to their history. This isn't about suppressing emotion, it's about upgrading your interpretation. The ultimate Stoic antidote: turn jealousy into emulation. Ancient philosophers admired rivals not as threats, but as mirrors reflecting their own potential. If your date's ex was artistic, don't resent their talent, explore your own creativity. If they seem more socially confident, use that as inspiration to cultivate your charisma. Epictetus advised, don't seek for everything to happen as you wish, but wish for everything to happen as it does. In dating, that means seeing every trigger as an invitation to build unshakable self-assurance. Here's the paradox: the less you compete with ghosts, the more present you become in your own relationships. A partner's past doesn't diminish your present unless you let it. The Stoics didn't preach indifference, they preached discernment. Jealousy, when harnessed, becomes the sand that polishes your edges. So next time it flares, thank it. It's not ruining your connection, it's revealing where you're ready to grow, and that's how you transform a weakness into bedrock. Picture standing at a party, watching someone you're interested in laugh with an attractive stranger. Your stomach drops, but what if I told you the Stoics would call that reaction optional? Not because you shouldn't care who they engage with, but because true power lies in distinguishing what deserves your attention and what doesn't. This is the art of indifference, a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, often misunderstood as apathy. Real Stoic indifference isn't about feeling nothing. It's about consciously choosing where to invest your emotional energy. Let's define our terms. The Stoics divided the world into two categories: internals, the things within your control, like your values, efforts, and reactions, and externals, everything else, from someone's physical appearance to their social status. Indifference simply means refusing to let externals dictate your self-worth or happiness. Consider the dating profiles that flaunt luxury cars or six-pack abs. Those are externals, impressive perhaps, but fleeting. What lasts? Character, integrity, the way they treat waitstaff when no one's watching. As Epictetus put it, it's not what they have or don't have that disturbs you, but your opinion about what they have. Here's where most of us go wrong. We confuse attraction with attachment, mistaking initial chemistry for enduring compatibility. A classic Stoic exercise is to mentally strip away the trappings, the designer clothes, the charming Instagram feed, and ask, who is this person at their core? Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily, writing, "Strip away the legend that encrusts them, see them as they truly are. Try it next time you're drawn to someone." Ignore the job title, the curated persona. Focus on how they handle stress, whether they keep promises, if their words align with their actions. Those are the internals, the traits that build or break relationships. Practical application: start small. Notice when you're impressed by superficial markers, a flashy watch, a prestigious alma mater, and pause. Ask yourself, is this relevant to what I truly value? I once coached a client who kept dating charismatic speakers who turned out to be emotionally unavailable. When she started prioritizing consistency over charm, her entire dating life shifted. That's the power of indifference. It filters out distractions so you can spot genuine alignment. The irony: cultivating this discernment makes you more attractive. People sense when you're not easily swayed by status or looks. It reads as confidence, not arrogance. Seneca observed, "He who needs riches least enjoys riches most." Apply that to dating. The less you need someone's validation, the more freely you can appreciate them. Imagine walking into a date genuinely curious about their mind rather than nervous about their impression of you. That's the space where real connection grows. So tonight, try this reframe. When swiping through profiles or meeting someone new, label each detail external or internal. Their height, external; their patience when you're running late, internal; their vacation photos, external; how they speak about former partners, internal. Slowly, you'll rewire your attraction compass toward what actually sustains love. Because in the end, Stoic indifference isn't about caring less, it's about caring wisely. And that changes everything. Scrolling through social media, it's impossible to miss the highlight reels: couples laughing over candlelit dinners, surprise bouquets delivered to doorsteps, captions gushing over perfect partners. Meanwhile, you're staring at a lukewarm "hey" from someone you've been trying to connect with for weeks. That sting you feel, it's not just disappointment, it's comparison, one of the fastest routes to self-inflicted misery in dating. Seneca saw this 2,000 years ago when he wrote, "The man who envies others' happiness makes his own impossible." Every time you measure your love life against curated snapshots, you're not just judging your reality, you're rejecting it. Here's the brutal truth no dating app will tell you. Comparison isn't just theft of joy, it's a distortion of truth. That couple vacationing in Bali. You're not seeing their silent car rides home or the nights one of them slept on the couch. The friend who seems to attract soulmates effortlessly. You don't witness their private doubts or the dates that went nowhere. The Stoics called this fantasiae, impressions that masquerade as reality. When you compare your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel, you're not evaluating facts, you're falling for an illusion. The antidote: define success on your own terms. Marcus Aurelius kept a journal reminder: never value the approval of others over your own inner voice. Ask yourself, what does a fulfilling dating life actually look like for me? Is it a whirlwind of fleeting connections or slow burning depth? 10 matches a week or one meaningful conversation? There's no universal standard, only what aligns with your values. A client of mine once fixated on her friend's perfect engagement until she realized her friend had settled for stability over passion. That became her wake-up call to stop chasing benchmarks and start listening to her own desires. Practical exercise: next time you catch yourself envying someone's relationship, dissect the envy. Are you craving the aesthetic, the photos, the anniversaries, or the substance beneath it? Often we covet the idea of what others have, not the reality. Write down 3 non-negotiables for your ideal connection. Not what society praises, but what makes you feel seen. Maybe it's someone who remembers your coffee order, not someone who posts about you. Maybe it's emotional availability, not expensive dates. When you anchor to your own metrics, others' victories stop feeling like your defeats. History's greatest Stoics faced this too. Epictetus, born into slavery, watched wealthy men parade their privileges while he owned nothing. Yet he taught, freedom isn't secured by filling your purse, but by emptying your greed. In dating, freedom comes not from collecting more likes or matches, but from releasing the need to compete. That couple announcing their pregnancy, lovely for them. Your path isn't slower, it's yours. The Stoics knew the only life you can ruin is the one you spend comparing. So close the apps put down the measuring stick. Your love story isn't meant to mirror anyone else's, it's meant to be written by you. Imagine scrolling through dating profiles, dismissing someone because they mentioned an odd hobby or because their smile wasn't perfect. Now flip it. What if someone swiped left on you for that one insecurity you can't shake? The Stoics had a phrase for this human tendency: ta f hemen, what is up to us. And here's the truth we often forget. Judging others for their flaws is just a mirror of how harshly we judge ourselves. Stoic realism isn't about settling, it's about shifting from a mindset of fixing to one of accepting. Because in dating, the pursuit of perfection doesn't lead to love, it leads to loneliness. Consider Marcus Aurelius, ruler of an empire, yet he wrote daily reminders about his own shortcomings, his temper, his distractions, his vanity. Why? Because he knew self-awareness without self-acceptance is just self-torture. Apply this to dating. That person who talks too much about their cat. They're not flawed, they're passionately themselves. Your own awkward laugh or niche obsession with vintage typewriters. Not liabilities, but proof you're a real human, not a curated profile. Epictetus put it bluntly: it's impossible to learn that which you think you already know. When you approach connections assuming people should fit a mold, you miss the beauty of who they actually are. Here's the practice. Next time you're tempted to criticize a date's mannerisms or your own pause, ask, is this a genuine red flag or just a quirk I've been conditioned to dislike? A real red flag harms, think disrespect or cruelty. A quirk, that's just personality. One client admitted she'd rejected a man for his weird habit of collecting seashells until she realized her judgment said more about her fear of being seen as unconventional than about his harmless joy. The magic happens when you extend this grace to yourself. That voice whispering, if I were funnier / skinnier / more successful, I'd be loved. It's not protecting you, it's starving you. The Stoics called this adiaphora, indifference to externals. Your worth isn't earned by erasing imperfections, it's inherent. Think of a cracked vase still holding water. The cracks don't make it useless, they make it unique. Practical exercise. List 3 imperfections you've judged in yourself or others. Now rewrite them as neutral or even positive traits. Too quiet becomes thoughtful listener. Overly enthusiastic transforms into passionately engaged. This isn't delusion, it's recalibration, because in the end, love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about seeing someone whole and letting them see you the same way. The Stoics didn't preach tolerance of flaws, they celebrated them as proof of our shared humanity. Your so-called imperfections aren't obstacles to connection, they're the very things that make connection real. So next time a date reveals their oddball habit, lean in. That's not a red flag, it's an invitation to love more fearlessly. And isn't that what we're all truly searching for? Ever notice how a single word can shift the entire tone of a conversation? Someone texts you, "We need to talk," and your stomach drops not because of the facts, but because of the uncertainty lurking in those four vague words. Now imagine receiving this instead: "I've been thinking about our last date and I'd love to understand your perspective. Could we chat tomorrow?" Same intention, worlds apart in impact. This is the power of Stoic communication, precise, honest, and stripped of emotional ambush. The Stoics were masters of purposeful speech. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Let every word count." Not because they valued brevity for its own sake, but because unclear language breeds anxiety in others and ourselves. Think about modern dating's toxic habits: ghosting, saying nothing; breadcrumbing, saying just enough to keep someone hooked; or the dreaded "you up" text, saying little while implying much. These aren't just bad manners, they're failures of Stoic discipline. When you leave someone guessing, you're not sparing their feelings, you're outsourcing your discomfort to them. Here's the practice: before sending a message, run it through the Stoic triple filter. First, is it true? Not technically true, but fully transparent. If you're no longer interested, say so kindly, no slow fade. Second, is it necessary? That cryptic, "Guess you're busy" text, replace it with directness: "I'd love to see you again, let me know when you're free." Third, is it free from emotional hooks, passive aggression, "Fine, ignore me," or guilt tripping, "I just miss you so much"? Aren't communication, they're coercion in disguise. Consider the contrast between needy and grounded texting. Needy: "Why haven't you replied? Did I do something wrong?" Anxiety masquerading as a question. Stoic: "Hope you're well." When you're free, "I'd love to hear how you're doing." Clarity with space. One drains energy, the other preserves dignity. Epictetus, who was enslaved before becoming a philosopher, knew this intimately. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice as much as we speak. In dating, that means listening to what's not said, your own fears whispering through vague language, and choosing words that honor both your truth and theirs. Practical exercise for 1 week: audit your messages. Highlight every qualifier, maybe, sort of, I guess, an emotional hedge, "Sorry to bother you, but..." Replace them with clean, confident prose. Instead of "I'm probably overthinking, but do you still like me?" try "I value clarity. How are you feeling about us?" Watch how your relationships transform when you stop speaking from fear and start communicating from integrity. The Stoics didn't avoid tough conversations, they elevated them. Seneca wrote letters to friends that were direct yet tender, holding space for hard truths without cruelty. That's the art. "This isn't working for me," delivered with the same care as "I adore you." When every word carries weight, you're no longer just exchanging texts, you're building trust. And in a world of digital ambiguity, that's the rarest currency of all. Marcus Aurelius once scribbled in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Few things test that power like the weight of past dating wounds. The rejection that still stings years later, the betrayal you replay like a scratched record, the ghost of someone who left without explanation. These aren't just memories, they're emotional anchors tethering you to versions of love that no longer exist. Stoicism offers a radical alternative: cut the rope. Not by forgetting, but by transforming how you carry what happened. Start with this truth: the past isn't a prophecy. That person who cheated, they don't dictate your next partner's loyalty. The one who made you feel insignificant, their voice isn't a courtroom ruling on your worth. The Stoics called this the discipline of assent, the practice of consciously choosing which thoughts to endorse and which to discard. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind." Every minute spent reliving old hurts is a minute stolen from creating new joys. Here's how to break the cycle. First, name the story. Write down the narrative you've attached to your past. "I was abandoned. I'm unlovable. Trust always backfires." Now fact-check it. Did everyone actually abandon you, or did a few people leave while others stayed? Is always truly accurate, or are there exceptions your pain has erased? The Stoics weren't about denial, they were about precision. As Epictetus taught, it's not events that disturb us, but our interpretation of them. Next, create a release ritual. The ancients understood the power of symbolism. Try this: write each old wound on a slip of paper, then burn it safely or tear it into a river. As you do, recite Marcus' reminder: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. That betrayal that made you guarded, it taught you discernment. The heartbreak that hollowed you out, it carved space for deeper love. The ritual isn't magic, it's a physical declaration that the past no longer owns you. One client of mine carried resentment toward an ex for 5 years. Her release ritual: she buried a box of mementos in her garden and planted wildflowers atop it. 6 months later, she met someone new, and for the first time, she wasn't subconsciously comparing them to a ghost. That's the Stoic secret. Healing isn't about erasing scars, it's about refusing to let them itch forever. Finally, rewrite the narrative. Instead of "I was hurt, so I'll never trust again," try "I was hurt, so I now trust myself to handle whatever comes." This is Amor Fati, an action-loving fate even when it bruised you. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire through plagues and wars, yet he wrote, "The universe is change, life is opinion." Your past doesn't have to be a shadow, it can be the soil where something stronger grows. So tonight, light a candle for what was, thank it, then blow it out and turn toward what's next. The moment your alarm goes off, your mind is already racing, thinking about that date tonight, rehearsing conversations, bracing for possible rejection. But here's what the Stoics knew: how you start your morning sets the trajectory for your entire day, especially when emotions run high. Imagine facing your date not from a place of nervous anticipation, but from unshakable calm, because you've already anchored yourself in clarity. That's the power of a Stoic morning ritual. Begin with stillness, before reaching for your phone, before even leaving your bed. Take 5 minutes to practice what the Stoics called premeditatio diem, the premeditation of the day ahead. Close your eyes and visualize the evening's date not as a performance but as an exploration. See yourself listening deeply, responding authentically, and accepting whatever unfolds with equanimity. This isn't about scripting outcomes, it's about rehearsing your emotional resilience. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." That shift from anxiety to gratitude changes everything. Next, journal. Grab a notebook and answer 3 Stoic prompts. First, what's within my control today? Your preparation, your attitude, your boundaries. Second, what's not? Their reactions, chemistry, external interruptions. Third, what virtue will I embody tonight? Maybe it's courage to be vulnerable or wisdom to discern genuine connection. Epictetus taught his students to first say to yourself what kind of person you want to be, then act accordingly. Writing it down crystallizes intention. Now move your body. The Stoics were adamant about physical discipline, not for vanity but for mental fortitude. A 20-minute walk, some light stretching, or even push-ups channels nervous energy into vitality. Seneca noted, "It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Wasting time today means scrolling through their social media or obsessing over outfit choices. Investing it means cultivating the energy that makes you magnetic. Finally, rehearse indifference, not apathy, but the Stoic ability to hold outcomes lightly. Say aloud, "Tonight may go brilliantly or it may not. Either way, I remain rooted in my worth." This isn't affirmation, it's armor. By midday, you'll have already faced the worst-case scenario in your mind, so reality holds no surprises. The magic of this ritual isn't in the steps themselves, but in the mindset they forge. When you walk into that date, you're no longer seeking validation, you're offering presence, and that's the ultimate paradox. The less you need the night to go well, the better it tends to unfold. So tomorrow, before the world demands your attention, give yourself this gift. The Stoics didn't master their emotions by chance, they did it by design. And so can you. There's a peculiar irony about modern dating. We chase comfort while expecting growth. We want deep connection without the vulnerability it requires, chemistry without the awkwardness of first dates, commitment without the risk of rejection. The Stoics would call this delusional. Growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. It happens when we voluntarily step into discomfort. This is the 17th Stoic way. Embracing discomfort as training for emotional resilience, because if you can handle a cold shower at 6 a.m., you can handle the sting of a cancelled date. Start with the physical. The ancient Stoics practiced ascesis, disciplined training of the body and mind. Seneca slept on hard beds and wore thin robes in winter. Musonius Rufus insisted manual labor was superior to intellectual work because it toughened the spirit. Modern science backs this. Voluntary discomfort, like cold exposure or fasting, spikes stress tolerance by teaching your nervous system that discomfort isn't danger. Apply this to dating. The dread you feel before swiping right on someone out of your league, that's not fear, it's opportunity. The awkward silence you rush to fill on a first date. It's a chance to practice sitting with unease. Here's how to translate this. For 1 week, commit to daily micro-discomforts. Take a cold shower for 30 seconds. Skip the snooze button. Strike up a conversation with a stranger in line at the coffee shop. Each time, notice your impulse to avoid it, then do it anyway. This isn't masochism, it's neuroplasticity. Your brain learns, I can endure this and I'm stronger for it. When you're ghosted or face rejection, that same muscle memory kicks in. This feels awful, but no worse than ice-cold water, and I survived that. But Stoic discomfort goes deeper than physical challenges. It's about emotional exposure therapy. Try texting someone first, even if it terrifies you. Be honest about your feelings when you'd normally play it cool. The goal isn't the outcome, it's proving to yourself that you can handle the aftermath. Epictetus, who endured slavery, taught, difficulties show men what they are. Every time you choose discomfort, you're rewriting your identity, not as someone who avoids pain, but as someone who moves through it. The payoff: dating stops feeling like a minefield. Awkward moments become curiosities, not catastrophes. Rejection stings but doesn't paralyze, because you've conditioned your mind to recognize discomfort as neither permanent nor personal, just part of the process. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The obstacle is the way. The cold shower, the unanswered text, the vulnerable confession, they're not roadblocks, they're the path itself." And the more you walk it, the more unshakable you become. There's a dangerous story we tell ourselves when dating feels hard, that the universe is conspiring against us. All the good ones are taken, dating apps are rigged, nice people always finish last. Here's the Stoic reality check. Victimhood is a seductive trap, and every minute spent blaming external forces is a minute stolen from your own agency. Seneca put it bluntly, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. That voice whispering, "I'll never find love," it's not prophecy, it's permission to stop trying. And Stoicism offers a liberating alternative: radical ownership. Consider the dichotomy of control. You can't dictate who swipes right or how many attractive singles live in your city. But you can control your profile's authenticity, the energy you bring to conversations, and how you interpret setbacks. When you claim responsibility for your half of the equation, something shifts. That person who ghosted you isn't proof the dating pool is toxic. They're data. Data to refine your selection process, to spot red flags earlier, to invest in people who match your effort. Marcus Aurelius framed this as mental discipline. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Here's the practice. Next time you catch yourself venting, Why does this always happen to me? Pause and reframe. Try, what's my role in this pattern? Maybe you're drawn to emotionally unavailable people because part of you fears real intimacy. Maybe you're settling for breadcrumbs because you haven't enforced boundaries. This isn't about self-blame, it's about self-awareness. Epictetus, born into slavery, taught that freedom begins when we stop blaming others for our chains. In dating, your chains might be outdated beliefs. I'm too old to find love, lazy habits, I'll just wait for them to text first, or unresolved wounds that attract the wrong partners. History's greatest Stoics faced far worse than dating frustrations, wars, betrayals, exile, yet their journals overflow with accountability. When Marcus Aurelius lost his father young, he didn't rage at fate. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." Your dating obstacles aren't barriers, they're curriculum. That terrible match who talked only about themselves, they taught you to value reciprocity. The ghosting epidemic, it's training you to detach from outcomes. Even loneliness, when leveraged, becomes clarity about what you truly crave in connection. Practical step: audit your dating narratives. Write down 3 complaints. No one approaches me. People only want hookups. Then brainstorm counter evidence. Has no one ever shown interest, or are you dismissing those who don't fit an ideal? Do all people want hookups, or are you swiping on profiles that prioritize casual? Victimhood generalizes ownership specifics. The moment you trade "why me" for "what now," you reclaim your power. The irony: blame is comfortable. It lets us off the hook. It's not me, it's them. But comfort stagnates, discomfort transforms. Every time you take responsibility, you're not admitting defeat, you're declaring agency. And that's when the real work begins, not finding the right partner, but becoming the kind of person the right partner recognizes. Because here's the secret the Stoics knew: the world owes you nothing, but you owe yourself everything. Here's a counterintuitive truth about dating frustration: the more you fixate on what's missing, the matches that don't reply, the dates that don't progress, the more scarcity colors your entire experience. But Stoicism flips this script with a practice so simple it's often overlooked: gratitude. Not the vague, performative, thankful for everything kind, but targeted, daily recognition of the tangible gifts already present in your dating life. Marcus Aurelius began each morning by listing what he appreciated, from the warmth of sunlight to the wisdom of mentors. For modern daters, this isn't just feel-good fluff. It's emotional alchemy that rewires dissatisfaction into discernment. Start with the science. Studies from UC Berkeley and Harvard reveal that consistent gratitude practice reduces cortisol, the stress hormone, by up to 23% while boosting serotonin and dopamine, the same neurotransmitters sparked by new romantic connections. In other words, gratitude doesn't just make you feel better, it biologically primes you to attract better. One groundbreaking study tracked 2 groups of singles. One journaled daily about dating frustrations, the other listed specific positive interactions. "No matter how small, she remembered my coffee order. He laughed at my obscure movie reference." After 8 weeks, the gratitude group reported 57% higher optimism about dating and were noticeably more resilient to rejection. Why? Because training your brain to spot micro-wins builds an unshakable foundation. You're no longer relying on external validation to feel worthy. Here's how to apply this like a Stoic. Each evening, grab a notebook. Yes, analog. The physical act deepens the neural impact, and answer 3 prompts. First, what dating-related moment today felt genuinely good? Maybe it was a thoughtful question from a match, or the confidence boost of wearing an outfit that made you feel unstoppable. Second, what did I learn about myself or others? Perhaps you noticed impatience creeping in when someone typed slowly, revealing a hidden intolerance, or maybe a date story about their immigrant parents deepened your appreciation for diverse backgrounds. Third, what's one small pleasure unrelated to dating that I often overlook? The way your barista knows your name, the comfort of clean sheets. This last point is crucial. It reminds you that your happiness isn't contingent on romance. The magic lies in specificity. Vague entries like "I'm grateful for dating" lack transformative power. Instead, drill down. "I'm grateful for the way Sarah asked follow-up questions during our Zoom date. It made me feel heard," which is rare. This does two things. It highlights qualities you value in others, sharpening your discernment, and reinforces your own standards. You deserve to feel heard. Epictetus taught that gratitude is the antidote to entitlement, the belief that love owes you something. When you document the solid conversations, the hilarious mishaps, even the rejections that spared you mismatched relationships, you stop seeing dating as a battlefield and start experiencing it as a curated journey. Consider the story of a client who dreaded dating apps until he began noting one positive interaction per day. Not just matches, but witty bios that made him chuckle or a stranger's kind comment on his profile picture. Within weeks, his entire energy shifted. He stopped obsessing over reply times and started engaging with curiosity. Ironically, his match rate soared. Why? Gratitude had quieted his desperation, the very quality that repels healthy connections. The Stoics didn't practice gratitude to ignore life's harshness. They used it to transcend it. Seneca wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." In dating terms, savor the conversation in front of you, not the relationship it might become. When you train your mind to spot the gold dust in everyday interactions, you stop measuring dates by their outcomes and start appreciating them as experiences. And that's when the real shift happens. You're no longer chasing love from a place of lack, but inviting it from a place of abundance. So tonight, before you dissect that unanswered text or replay the date's awkward moment, pick up your pen. List 3 concrete gifts your dating life has given you this week. They're there, hidden beneath the noise of expectation, and the more you acknowledge them, the more they multiply. Because gratitude isn't just a practice, it's the ultimate rebellion against a culture that tells you you're not enough until someone else confirms it. The Stoics knew joy isn't found in getting what you want, but in wanting what you already have, and sometimes that includes the messy, magnificent process of finding love. Boundaries aren't walls, they're the invisible lines that teach others how to love you. Stoicism reframes them not as restrictions, but as sacred acts of self-respect. Picture this: someone you've been dating makes a dismissive comment about your passions. The old you might laugh it off, burying the discomfort to keep the peace. The Stoic you, they pause, then say calmly, "I share things that matter to me. If that's not your style, we might not be a match." No anger, no ultimatums, just a clear signal that your worth isn't up for negotiation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Boundaries are the ultimate application of that truth. You can't control whether someone respects you, but you absolutely control whether you tolerate disrespect. Think of the Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus, who taught that enduring abuse silently makes you complicit in your own mistreatment. Every time you let a cutting remark slide or accept breadcrumbs of attention, you're training people to treat you as optional. Setting boundaries isn't about controlling others, it's about governing your own dignity. Consider the dating landscape's gray areas, that person who texts at midnight but vanishes during the day. The one who cancels plans last minute with a vague excuse. These aren't just annoyances, they're tests of your Stoic resolve. Each time you rationalize their behavior, maybe they're just busy, you erode your standards. The Stoic alternative: match energy without apology. If they take days to reply, mirror their pace. If they cancel without rescheduling, let the ball stay in their court. This isn't manipulation, it's self-preservation. Here's where most stumble: they confuse boundaries with punishments. A true Stoic boundary isn't, "If you don't text back faster, I'll ignore you for revenge." It's, "I prioritize consistent communication, so I'll invest in those who do the same." The first comes from ego, the second from integrity. Epictetus, who endured slavery before becoming a philosopher, put it bluntly, "It's not what happens to you, but how you respond that matters." Your boundaries are your response to the world's chaos, a declaration of what you'll participate in. Practical exercise. List 3 non-negotiables for how you'll be treated, not demands for others, but promises to yourself. Maybe it's, "I won't entertain conversations that degrade my values," or "I'll leave after 15 minutes if they're late without notice." Write them down. Then the hard part, enforce them without fanfare. The Stoics didn't announce their principles, they lived them. When you walk away from what doesn't serve you, you're not being harsh, you're being honest. And honesty, as the Stoics knew, is the bedrock of wisdom. But boundaries aren't just about saying no, they're about saying yes to yourself. That energy you once wasted chasing lukewarm interest. Redirect it toward people who light up when you enter the room. The hours spent dissecting mixed signals, invest them in hobbies that make you feel alive. Every boundary is a trade. You're exchanging temporary loneliness for lasting self-trust. And that's the ultimate Stoic paradox. The less you tolerate, the more you receive. Because when you stop begging for crumbs, you suddenly notice who's offering whole banquets. So tonight, try this reframe. Don't think, "What if they leave if I set this boundary?" Ask instead, "What if they stay and teach me I was worth respecting all along?" That's the shift from fearing loss to embracing alignment. The Stoics didn't build Rome in a day, and your boundaries won't solidify overnight. But each time you honor one, you're laying another brick in the unshakable fortress of your self-worth. And that's how you turn dating from a negotiation into a revelation, not of who they are, but of who you've become. Ghosting hurts. There's no sugarcoating that gut punch moment when someone vanishes without explanation. But what if that sting could become your superpower? The Stoics had a fierce mantra: the obstacle is the way. When life hands you rejection, they didn't just endure it, they leveraged it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way," and dating is no exception. That silence from someone you liked, it's not a dead end, it's a detour sign pointing you towards someone truly worthy of your energy. Think of obstacles in dating like weights in a gym. You don't avoid them because they're heavy, you lift them because they make you stronger. Take ghosting instead of ruminating on why they disappeared, flip it. Use that frustration as fuel to swipe right on 10 new people. Channel the confusion into refining your profile or trying a new social hobby where you'll meet faces fresh from the algorithm's grasp. The Stoics called this paratrope turning obstacles upside down. That cancelled date, an unexpected free evening to call an old friend or finally start that book. The match who never replied, a reminder to invest only in those who match your effort. History's greatest Stoics transformed their deepest wounds into wisdom. Epictetus, born into slavery, could have crumbled under bitterness. Instead, he declared, "Difficulty shows what men are." His suffering became his syllabus for resilience. Apply this to modern dating. That person who led you on, they've given you a masterclass in spotting future empty promises. The one who said you were too intense. They revealed how deeply you crave meaningful connection, a gift, not a flaw. Even the awkward dates are data points, sharpening your intuition about what truly clicks for you. Here's the practice. Next time you hit a dating roadblock, a rejection, a slow fade, a mismatch, ask yourself, how can this serve me? Maybe it's motivation to finally delete stagnant conversations cluttering your inbox. Maybe it's the nudge to join that hiking group where connections happen offline. One client of mine turned a brutal breakup into a 100 days of new people challenge coffee with a stranger every week. By day 70, she'd not only expanded her social circle but met someone who valued her spontaneity. That's the alchemy of Stoicism, converting leaden disappointments into golden opportunities. The magic lies in reframing absence as space. When someone exits your life, they're not taking anything with them, they're clearing the way for what fits better. Seneca put it best, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. In dating terms, sometimes even to keep showing up is the victory. Every obstacle you repurpose is a declaration to the universe. I'm not here to play the victim, I'm here to play the architect. And architects don't weep over demolished walls, they draft new blueprints. So the next time a door slams shut in your dating life, pause. Don't just stand there knocking, turn around. The hallway is lined with other doors, and one of them leads to a room where someone's already waiting, wondering when you'll finally walk in. Ever fired off an angry text after a dating disappointment, only to regret it the next morning? That heat rising in your chest, fingers flying across the keyboard, it feels urgent, necessary even. But here's what Seneca knew 2,000 years ago: emotions are terrible advisors in the moment. In his letters to Lucilius, he wrote, "Wait, allow time to intervene between the impulse and the action." That pause isn't passivity, it's the ultimate power move in dating. Welcome to the 22nd Stoic Way, the 24-hour rule. Picture this modern scenario. You see your date's Instagram story, they're out with friends, laughing with someone attractive. Your gut clenches, the immediate script in your head screams, are they already moving on? Was I just an option? Here's where the Stoic pause becomes your shield. Instead of reacting, you set a literal timer, 24 hours, no texts, no subtweets, no forensic analysis of their social media activity, just space. Because here's the truth neuroscience confirms, emotional peaks last roughly 6 to 12 hours. That jealousy, that panic, that urge to demand answers, it's chemical, not cosmic. By waiting, you're not suppressing emotion, you're letting biology run its course so wisdom can take the wheel. Seneca's letters overflow with examples of this discipline. When offended by a friend's remark, he'd retreat to his study, sometimes for days, before responding. Anger, he wrote, is like a runaway chariot, it only stops when it crashes. Apply this to dating. That message you drafted at midnight accusing them of playing games, by noon tomorrow, stripped of cortisol's distortion, it might transform into a simple, "Hey, I noticed something that felt off, could we talk?" One version burns bridges, the other builds understanding. The 24-hour rule isn't just about preventing regret, it's about uncovering truth. Emotions are data, not directives. Your jealousy might reveal an insecurity worth addressing. Do I truly believe I'm enough? Your hurt might highlight a boundary you've been neglecting. Why do I tolerate inconsistent energy? Marcus Aurelius journaled nightly to distill the clear elixir of reason from the muddy wine of emotion. Your waiting period serves the same purpose. Practical steps make this tangible. Create a draft folder in your messaging apps. When triggered, type your raw reaction there, then walk away. Better yet, handwrite it and tear it up after 24 hours. Notice how often the urgency fades entirely. One client of mine nearly ended things over a misinterpreted text, only to realize after waiting that her reaction stemmed from an old wound unrelated to her partner. That's the gift of delay. It separates the past's ghosts from the present's reality. But here's the nuance. This isn't about stonewalling. If something genuinely needs addressing, the 24-hour rule clarifies how, not whether. Compare, "You're clearly not serious about me," emotionally charged, accusatory, with, "I felt uneasy when plans changed last minute. Can we align on communication?" Grounded, solution-oriented, the former pushes people away, the latter invites connection. The Stoics weren't anti-emotion, they were pro-clarity. Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. That gap between feeling and action is where your dating power lies. So next time your pulse races over a perceived slight, hear Seneca's ancient whisper, "Wait, the night will give you counsel." And when the storm passes, you'll know, was this truly a red flag or just your heart learning to trust? Think about the last time you bent your own rules for someone you were dating. Maybe you laughed at a joke that crossed the line. ignored a red flag because the chemistry was electric, or stayed quiet when they cancelled plans for the third time. Now imagine pausing in that moment and asking yourself one question. Is this who I want to be? That's the core of Stoic virtue, not just avoiding wrong, but actively choosing right, even when it's hard. In dating, where emotions run high and validation feels scarce, aligning with virtue isn't about perfection. It's about anchoring yourself to 4 pillars: wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control. Start with wisdom, the Stoic art of seeing things as they are, not as you wish them to be. It's the difference between "they'll change if I just love them enough" and "they've shown me who they are, my job is to believe them." Wisdom in dating means recognizing when attraction is clouding your judgment, when potential is overshadowing reality. Picture this: you're 3 dates in with someone who checks every superficial box, but they subtly put down your interest. Wisdom doesn't rationalize, maybe they're just having a bad day. It discerns. This is a pattern of disrespect. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit." The second is to look things in the face and know them for what they are. In love, that means trading rose-colored glasses for clear vision. Then comes courage, not just bravery in expressing feelings, but the guts to walk away from what doesn't serve you. Courage is sending the honest text, "I need consistency to feel secure," instead of the safe one, "No worries, I'm easygoing." It's ending things with the person who's almost right because almost is still a no. The Stoics admired courage because it's the bridge between knowing and doing. Consider a client of mine who stayed in a situationship for months, terrified that speaking up would scare them off. When she finally said, "I want a relationship or nothing," they vanished, and she realized the truth didn't ruin her chances, it revealed them. As Epictetus put it, circumstances don't make the man, they reveal him. Your courage doesn't guarantee love, it guarantees self-respect. Justice in Stoicism isn't about fairness in the legal sense, it's about treating others and yourself with the dignity they deserve. In dating, that means rejecting games like intentional delays in texting or feigning disinterest to seem aloof. It's the difference between "I'll wait 3 hours to reply so I don't look desperate" and "I'll respond when I'm free because my time matters too." Justice also extends to how you speak about exes or past flings. The Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus taught that character is revealed in how we treat those who can't benefit us. Someone who trash talks their former partners, that's a red flag wrapped in a warning sign. Justice asks, am I acting in a way I'd admire if roles were reversed? Finally, self-control, the quiet virtue that keeps the others in balance. It's the pause before you spiral, stalk their ex online, the deep breath when jealousy whispers, "They're out without you, something's wrong." Self-control isn't suppression, it's the space between impulse and action where choice lives. Seneca described it as the ability to do what's right even when it feels wrong. Think of the last time you wanted to double text after being left on read. Self-control doesn't judge the desire, it asks, will this serve my peace or sabotage it? Here's the practice: before your next date or your next text, run your intentions through the Stoic virtue filter. Is this wise or just hopeful, courageous or reckless? Just or self-serving, self-controlled or impulsive? Virtue isn't a checklist, it's a compass. And when you date by it, you stop attracting people who like the version of you that pleases them, and start attracting those who respect the version that honors you. Because the ultimate Stoic truth is this: you teach people how to love you by how you love yourself, and virtue is the language that lesson's written in. Modern dating feels like browsing an endless menu where nothing satisfies. Swipe left for perceived flaws, swipe right for fleeting potential, always scanning for something better, just one refresh away. The Stoics would call this madness. 2,000 years ago, Seneca warned, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." Today, we've confused abundance with fulfillment, mistaking more options for better connections. The 24th Stoic Way cuts through this noise. Simplify your desires. Not by lowering standards, but by elevating discernment, seeking depth over distractions, substance over spectacle. Consider the paradox of choice in dating apps. Profiles become checklists: height, income, zodiac signs, as if love were a customizable product. We filter out entire humans over arbitrary preferences, must love dogs and have a passport. Then wonder why connections feel transactional. The Stoic alternative: strip dating back to its essence. Does this person's character align with my values? Do I feel at peace in their presence? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life." In love, that little isn't a tally of traits. It's the quiet certainty that someone's presence makes you more yourself. Take the contrast between two daters. One obsesses over responses per hour, who liked whose story, crafting the perfect witty reply. The other communicates clearly, meets with curiosity, and walks away if energy isn't matched. The first is chasing validation. The second is practicing Stoic minimalism, focusing only on what nurtures genuine connection. Epictetus framed desire as a kind of slavery. Freedom is secured not by the fulfilling of desires, but by the removal of desire. Apply this to dating. When you stop craving constant attention or worrying about being the best option, you're free to engage authentically. Practical steps. Start with a dating detox. For 1 week, delete apps and notice what arises: loneliness, boredom, relief. Those emotions reveal whether you're seeking companionship or distraction. Next, prune your non-negotiables. Instead of "must be 6 feet tall and love sushi," try kind, curious, and emotionally available. One client of mine paired her list to 3 traits: integrity, humor, and growth mindset. Within months, she met someone unconventional by her old standards, a homebody who wrote poetry, and found a connection deeper than any checklist could have predicted. Here's the radical truth: complexity in dating often masks fear. More filters, more games, more rules create the illusion of control. But love isn't a puzzle to solve, it's a presence to inhabit. The Stoics knew simplicity wasn't deprivation, it was liberation. Imagine walking into a date not to impress, but to discover, not to secure a future, but to share a moment. That's the shift. When Zen master Senkan wrote, "If you wish to see the truth, hold no opinions," he might as well have been describing love. The fewer expectations you carry, the more clearly you see what's actually there. So tonight, try this. Write down everything you think you want in a partner, then cross out anything that isn't a core value. What remains, that's your compass. The rest is just noise, the static of a culture that profits from your endless searching. Stoic minimalism doesn't promise more matches, it promises meaningful ones. And in a world drowning in options, that's the rarest find of all. Nature doesn't force the river to flow uphill or demand the oak tree grow faster. It allows each thing to unfold according to its own design. Stoicism's final and most profound principle, living in accordance with nature, invites us to apply this same surrender to dating. Not resignation, but reverence for the organic rhythm of human connection, where some bonds root deeply while others dissolve like morning fog. Picture a dandelion releasing its seeds to the wind. Does it agonize over where they land, or does it trust that those meant to take root will find fertile ground? That's the essence of Stoic dating: effort without attachment, intention without insistence. Consider how often we disrupt this natural flow. We cling to fading connections, dissecting every text for hidden meaning. We chase people who have shown us their indifference, mistaking persistence for devotion. The Stoics would call this Amor Fati's opposite, not loving fate but wrestling against it. Marcus Aurelius reflected, "Everything harmonizes with me which is harmonious to you, O universe. Nothing for me is too early or too late which is in due time for you." In dating terms, the right person arrives not when you demand, but when the conditions align. that spark you're forcing over lukewarm coffee dates. Nature's silence is its answer. Here's the Stoic reframe. Instead of asking, "How can I make this work?" ask, "Does this flow naturally?" A relationship shouldn't feel like a tug of war where you're the only one pulling. The ancient Stoics observed the seasons, how winter's barrenness gives way to spring's renewal without struggle. Apply that wisdom to your love life, that match who never initiates plans. They're the autumn leaf clinging to the branch. Your job isn't to glue it back, but to let it fall. The conversation that flows effortlessly for hours. That spring erupting on its own schedule. History's great Stoics drew strength from nature's indifference. Seneca, exiled to Corsica's harsh terrain, didn't rage against the rocky soil. He planted gardens. Epictetus, born into slavery, spoke of aligning with nature's laws as the path to freedom. In modern dating, this means releasing the illusion of control. You can't make someone value you, just as you can't make the tide rise faster. But you can choose to invest where the current carries you naturally. Practical exercise for 1 month. Adopt the dandelion principle. Each time you're tempted to overextend, double texting, analyzing their tone, bending your boundaries, pause. Ask, "Am I forcing this or is it flourishing?" Notice the relief when you stop pushing boulders uphill and start rolling with the terrain. One client of mine obsessed over a month-long situationship until she tried this. The moment she stopped initiating, the connection faded within days, proof it was never rooted in the first place. Nature's feedback is mercilessly honest. But living in accordance with nature isn't passive. It's active trust, showing up fully while releasing timelines. It's tending your own garden so well that when the right person wanders in, you're not desperate for their presence, you're delighted to share the harvest. The Stoics didn't preach idleness, they preached alignment. Like a river carving its path over centuries, your love life will find its way not through force but through faithful persistence. So the next time a connection fades or a date disappoints, resist the urge to interrogate fate. Instead, stand still, listen. Nature's whisper is subtle but certain. What's meant for you won't pass you by. And that's the ultimate Stoic surrender, not to lose hope, but to place it in something larger than any single human heart. We've journeyed through 25 timeless Stoic principles to master emotional control in dating, from negative visualization to living in accordance with nature. But here's the secret the Stoics knew: these aren't isolated tricks, they're threads in a tapestry, each one strengthening the others. When you practice the dichotomy of control, you're also embodying self-sufficiency. When you embrace Amor Fati, you're reinforcing your ability to set boundaries. Together, they form an unshakable mindset, one where rejection can't derail you, where uncertainty doesn't paralyze you, where every interaction becomes an opportunity to grow rather than a test of your worth. Think of these principles as muscles. At first, flexing them feels unnatural, pausing before reacting, journaling instead of ruminating, finding gratitude in setbacks. But with repetition, they become reflexes. That moment when you'd normally spiral over an unanswered text, now you'll instinctively reach for your Stoic journal. The sting of a cancelled date, it's a chance to practice Amor Fati. Even the small victories count, choosing not to compare your love life to others, releasing the need to control outcomes, speaking with clarity instead of coded games. Over time, these shifts compound. You're no longer just applying Stoicism to dating, you're embodying it, and that changes everything. The beauty of this philosophy is its universality. These aren't rules for getting someone to like you. They're principles for becoming someone who doesn't hinge their happiness on who does. Whether you're navigating the early flutter of a new connection or the quiet ache of a fading one, Stoicism doesn't promise a pain-free journey. It promises resilience, wisdom, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing yourself deeply. So where do you begin? Start with one principle that resonates most. Maybe it's the 24-hour rule to break reactive texting habits. Perhaps it's negative visualization to soften the blow of rejection. Or maybe it's simply asking yourself each morning, what virtue will I embody today? Progress doesn't demand perfection, just persistent practice. Now I'd love to hear from you. Which Stoic principle will you try first? Drop a comment below. Let's learn from each other's journeys. And remember, mastery isn't about never feeling hurt. It's about knowing you have the tools to rise every time. The Stoics didn't leave us a map to avoid suffering. They gave us a compass to navigate it with grace. Your dating life will change when you realize the goal was never to control the storm, but to become the calm within it.